Have you struggled with health and vitality? You know Jesus is the way, truth, and life. Come with me, friend, as we catch ourselves. We're going to pay attention to God's thoughts. My guest and friend Mike Parsons said just this morning, I need to get close enough to the truth for it to entrain me in agreement. Get so close to Jesus that we draw current and flow and fluid. We start oscillating at heaven's sound. Can you imagine getting carried away and conjoined to all the elements of His goodness? Our solution and miracle is truth will change facts. Hello from the Pacific Northwest. This is Kristen from KristenWommack.com, and you're listening to Intentional Now podcast. Answer me this. How does a Baptist farm girl from Oregon stumble upon the mystical nature of Christ? The love of God. If you're like me, Jesus has redefined what you used to say yes to. Join me and my guest on a mystical journey, but before we talk about the spiritual woo-woo, you need to know I am totally sold out to Jesus. It's amazing what the love of God reveals. Welcome, my friend Mike Parsons. And how are you this afternoon? It's dark 30 here for me.
I'm very good in the sunny afternoon in the UK.
You guys have sun?
We've had sun all day today, yeah. Very good. We had wind and rain yesterday, but today it's been sunny all day.
Wow.
So I've been outside in the garden.
You're quite a gardener, aren't you? You like the garden.
I like gardening, yeah. I like gardening. I like doing anything really with my hands. So I was out in the workshop earlier, cutting some trim to put in a new panel in the workshop door because a bird flew into it and broke the glass. So to put a new glass panel in.
Well, I have a particular gift that I make that I will send you as a thank you gift. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I have a creative resolve for that problem.
Okay.
Yay. Oh, all right. I need to write myself a note. Send you one. Send Mike. Okay. I call them window jewels.
Okay.
And it works. I actually hang little mirrors and I sell them with little suction cups.
Yeah.
And it keeps the birds from bashing on the windows.
Okay, good.
One of those creative ideas. Yay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I had some questions. I actually listened to the last time that we got together. And since then, you have published another book.
Yep.
Wow. You're just writing. Well,
it took a while to write it because it was 800 odd pages long. So
yes, it was.
But we've got 7 more books in production. So
I take it they'll be a little shorter than the last.
They'll be a little shorter, yeah, probably about 250 words each. So wow. Yeah. So we're going to actually produce a book series on the Sons Arise conferences that I did 3 or 4 years ago, with 5 or 6 things, and then we're going to do a book on unconditional love. So we got the first one done. That's at the publishers, and then we're just transcribing and writing the next ones. So keep us busy for the next year. So
yeah, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I was talking to the Father, I have been for a little bit, regarding us hanging out today. Yeah. And there was a particular scripture that he brought to to the forefront that I'd like to share, and then we'll kind of see what Holy Spirit would like to talk about regarding that scripture. So he highlighted Romans 8:11. Our union with Christ further reveals that because the same Spirit who awakened the body of Jesus from the dead inhabits us, we equally participate in resurrection. In this act of authority whereby God raised Jesus from the dead, he co-restores our body to life by his indwelling Spirit. That's Romans 8:11.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that should be from the mirror. I didn't write down in my text.
Okay.
And with that heart of it, for this particular season, this particular year, what has been impressed on me and our gathering of believers is that this is a year of miracles. So in seeking the Father's heart, I wanted to ask you how, on behalf of my listeners, how do we step in? And step in is a loose term. How do we step in for miracles for our own bodies and for those that we are carrying in our heart?
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting subject. I think the word miracles really, I think, is actually the wrong way of thinking about it. A miracle is something that contradicts the natural, whereas I believe health and immortality should be normal. So we shouldn't need miracles to live in health and immortality, because they're basically just the reality of who we are as sons of God. We are immortal. Therefore, we don't have any sickness or disease. Now, I know that's the ideal, but the reality is, I think that's the reality. So if our thinking is we need a miracle, then we're coming from, we don't have something, this is not our identity, we need God to do something outside of our identity. Whereas I think we need to think about it as, no, we are immortal. We have, in union with Christ, we've partaken of his body and blood. We are living in communion with him, and he says we don't have to die. Well, if we don't have to die, then there's no sickness or disease that can affect us in that way. So for me, I don't see it as we need a miracle. We just need normality restored. So we need the restoration of what God originally intended, is that we wouldn't die. And that was his original intention, and that intention hasn't changed. It's just we've lost sight of it because we've got amnesia to our real identity as sons of God who are immortal. So if we think about it, if we think as a man thinks in his heart, so's he, if we think we're going to die eventually, then we are also agreeing with the fact that our body is going to come to a point where it runs out of steam or ends, either by disease or some other cause. Whereas if we think we're not going to die, then we don't need to have that mindset. Now, I understand that might be difficult for people who are in the midst of sickness or trying to deal with the issues that they're facing. But it is a distinction between what God sees as he created us to be in terms of immortal, and that state of being or state of mind or state of consciousness which we can choose to live in, or, well, we're looking for some miracle to overcome sickness or disease or whatever else we might be suffering. Therefore, we need God to do something, because a miracle is we're inherently, it's a suspension of the natural by the supernatural. And ultimately, miracles happen because God does them. I guess we could lay hands on the sick and see them recover. Mm-hmm. So Jesus came and did miracles, and he said we could do the same things that he did. But that's for people who don't know who they are, to demonstrate the reality or the power of God over the things which are inherent in our lost identity. So our lost identity carries with it sickness and disease, death. But Jesus overcame death. And all died in Adam and all are made alive in Christ. So there's a sense where there's something already been done, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are not aware of what's been done. So they still think something needs to be done rather than embracing what's already been done. See what I mean? So when I look at it, I look at the reality of the restoration, and in that verse in there, you have the restoration, which talks about our co-restores your body to life by his indwelling spirit. We participate in the resurrection. Well, we've already been resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already been brought to life. And Jesus promised us abundant life. And he promised us we wouldn't die.
I agree.
But we have to participate in that
Mm-hmm.
by entering into communion, into fellowship with life. And the further you walk away from life, then you're going to live in death. Adam walked away from life and chose to live independently within the context of death. But God kept looking to find him so he could bring him back to life. So
Mm-hmm.
God's desire is that we live in health and wholeness, which is immortality. And you've got 2 Timothy, I think, is it 1:10, where it talks about God has brought through the gospel, has brought life and immortality to light. And in that scripture, we are already receiving our identity from before the foundation of the world, which is then just brought back into the light. It's like it never changed from God's perspective. It just changed from ours because we got dark. We couldn't see it. We lost touch with it. And therefore we lost touch with what is the truth. And therefore we believed something which was less than true, a lie. And we agree with a lie, and the lie has power over us.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe in reality that we need a miracle as much as we need just to restore what actually is our true identity, which is immortality. But that being said, if you're in the midst of suffering with sickness or symptoms or whatever else, then you've got to get to that point. And that's where people find the difficulty, because it's hard when you have one thing challenging the other thing in terms of your belief. So your actual experiences challenge what you believe. So if you believe in immortality, but you're sick, then your experience challenges what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some things that's a good thing, where our experiences challenges what we believe, and what we believe is not right. So you've
Yes.
got cognitive dissonance, which is a good thing, but cognitive dissonance can also work in the other way. Actually, our experiences are wrong and what we believe is right. And so we have these experiences that contradict what we believe, but actually what we believe is right. So our belief in immortality needs to overcome our experience.
Uh-huh.
And that's where choosing to believe and accept and live in the reality of immortality brings about the changing of the situation in our life. Now, there are things that can help. And I think, actually taking communion and living in that state of
Mm-hmm.
communion, constantly having the river of life flowing from your innermost being, drawing from that life, being energized within, so that what's within energizes the whole body when we're in union, spirit, soul, and body. But a lot of people are fragmented and broken, so they're not in union. And they are sometimes heavily spiritual, or sometimes they're operating in the soul, but the body seems to be the bit that misses out on the union, because it's seen often as, well, that's going to die anyway and go to the grave. So, eventually it's going to be turned into dust, or it will be changed. Whereas I think if we see it that we're supposed to live in a union of spirit, soul, and body, in that oneness and harmony, then our spirit and soul, in conjunction with the body, actually brings about wholeness, and we can be energized from within, from our innermost being, the point in the very core of our center. We can be energized from heaven's life. You could call it spirit, you can call it light, you can call it living water, whatever you want to call it, but it carries with it immortality. And that's actually in us.
I
So
agree.
we've got to let it from the core of our being to touch all of our being. And I think we do that by our conscious agreement with the reality of it. And when you choose a reality, all the other possibilities have to cease to exist for that reality to manifest. And part of the problem is people are double-minded or triple-minded or quadruple-minded, and they're sort of waving around in terms of what they believe. And it isn't a question of my beliefs make it true. What is true, I believe in. And that's the difference. We've been taught, and I was taught, if you believe hard enough, it'll become true. It's already true. I just have to accept what's already true. And in contradiction to the symptoms which may be saying otherwise. And it has to happen in my thinking first.
Uh-huh.
So I believe it in my heart for it to manifest in my life. So Jesus talked about pray, believing you've received,
Right.
and then you'll receive. So if you believe in your heart what is the truth, then eventually that truth will change the facts of what's around your life in the natural sense. But it takes time for you to get to that point where you're not double-minded or triple-minded, where you're not wavering by every symptom, but you know what's true and you live in the reality of that truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you live in that reality, and that reality actually begins to form around you because you have no other reality that you believe. You have no other truth that you believe. That is the truth. And actually, the symptoms are, you're not in denial over symptoms. You just say those symptoms are in contradiction to the truth. And I don't believe that those symptoms have more power than the truth, because ultimately the truth is a person.
Yes,
The
he is.
truth is Jesus,
Yes, he
and Jesus has already conquered death, and he's already overcome that. And actually on the cross, he took not only our lost identity, but the sickness associated with it
is.
and overcame it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, I understand that it's difficult for people who have symptoms to not accept the symptoms because they're real. I'm not saying they're not real, and we shouldn't get in denial, and we shouldn't get into, Christian science and whatever. As our sickness doesn't exist. Well, it plainly does because people are dying of it. You know what I mean? So, um, but it doesn't have to be so if we choose the reality which aligns to God's heart. And God's heart for us is that we don't die, that we
Mm-hmm.
have life, both from the quality of life, the eternal aspect of the quality of life, but also life which does not end. But there may be transitions in that life from one degree of glory to another. Therefore, there is an increasing sense where we come into the knowledge of who we are, and we ascend into higher levels of knowledge of who we are. And
Mm-hmm.
that will take us even further into what immortality is really all about. Because all the limitations that we have placed on ourselves by living in a world which is limited need to be removed. So we need to disassociate with time being our enemy and aging being the product of time, day after day after day. I'm getting older. Well, I'm not. That's a mindset. The day, the sun, the moon and the sun, and all the revolving stuff, the earth around the sun and the moon around the earth, all that stuff happens. But why should that actually make me grow older? It's only because that's the expectation that we've been sold in the every day you're a day older, because we associate it with the movement of heavenly bodies. Well, why should that make my body change? Well, because I agreed and have agreed in the past that every time the day passes, I'm a day older. And with age comes death. So we've got to break our association with all of those negative ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So every day that passes, I don't get older. It's not in my thinking that I'm older, that my cells are a day, because my cells are all being restored every so many days anyway. So they're not 60 odd years old. They've been restored, and my body is designed to self-repair and self-heal.
I agree. I agree.
But there's a communication within our body that has been lost and fails as people get older in their thinking,
Uh-huh.
because the body is designed to self-repair And that means that the body looks at, within the mitochondria, there is the ability to look at the cell and have information. Is this cell healthy? Is this cell diseased? Is this cell just needs to be restored, or I need a new one replaced? So, but if you fail to communicate that, then the cell just remains as it is. Because if the cell is diseased, get rid of it. If the cell needs a replacement, then make a new one. If the cell is healthy, then great, it stays as it is. So within our body, it's designed to communicate that information. Well, that information seems to get short-circuited, and we need to have that restored. Now, there are ways of restoring it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there are ways of restoring it in that we become into this sense of wholeness, and we're looking at our whole body being energized and filled with life, and therefore that is something we can constantly choose the reality that my cells are communicating with each other to self-repair. My immune system is healthy and whole, and I live in that reality. There's also some things that people have discovered help. There's a liquid that people can drink called ASEA, which actually helps restore the body's ability to communicate. And it's very powerful. And there's also a gel that they do that I've seen put on burnt skin and is restored and repaired itself in a matter of hours, because it carries the ability to tell the cells in that burn to replicate new cells in an accelerated way, because we don't want to be waiting around for a long time for things to restore and repair. So there are things out there that people have discovered can help, but ultimately, I believe we can do the same thing with our own thinking and choices. I'm choosing to see my body in full health and wholeness, cooperating in a way that communicates the need for my whole being to be completely self-replicating and repairing and renewing, because that's how it was designed to be. Now, if you don't know that and you don't come into agreement with it, then you're sort of just going along with whatever is happening in your body. So I think we need to have information about what God intended it to be, so we can choose that, rather than just accept the inevitability of aging and death. And it's like, well, no, my body was not designed. So I believe God wants to restore all things, including my body's ability to self-heal and repair.
Agreed.
And therefore, if I do something which is contradictory, let's say I have an accident or I damage myself in some way, then how do I deal with that? Well, first thing I do is I apologize to my body for not being careful enough. Most of my accidents are done in the workshop with power tools or in the garden, but I'm not paying attention or whatever.
Or we're not paying attention, too busy, hurried.
Yeah. But I'm paying much more attention because I value my body. And every time I'm not paying attention, it's a sign that I don't value myself enough.
Ooh,
so I apologize.
That's a word. Every time I catch myself not paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I do something, I have an accident or whatever. The last accident I had was with a chainsaw, which I should have been which I should have been holding with two hands. And I decided I could do it with one hand and hold the wood, and it bounced and then came up. Fortunately, I had thick gloves on, but it did go right.
That's what your foot is for.
Well, maybe, but anyway, it ended up, causing some damage to my fingers and stuff. And immediately my first reaction was to say sorry to my body and say, look, I apologize. I was not paying attention. I was not careful enough. I was not looking after you as I should have done. And then I went about speaking to myself effectively, or coming into agreement with my body for it to restore and make whole. And a couple of people saw it and said, you need to go to hospital because you need to get stitches in it. And my reaction was, I sort of checked it out with the father, and it was like, no, it's okay. You can see this restored. And therefore, I chose to cooperate and work together with my body for the repair of those cells. First of all, I got rid of the trauma, because
Right.
trauma trapped in cells can cause
Yeah.
the body not to heal, because it's bound up in the trauma and doesn't work properly when it's traumatized. So I dealt with the trauma, released the trauma from my fingers,
Right.
and then I went about looking to cooperate with my body for an accelerated healing
Mm-hmm.
and restoration of it. And within a few days, basically, the whole thing had just started to completely heal and remove. And that happens. You know, I don't want to have accidents and stuff, so I need to be paying more attention. Usually, it's something that I haven't used before. I'm not familiar with that well, and then sort of I've not worked out the best way of doing it. But I need to read the instructions better. Because things are dangerous. So in a sense, I also need to take responsibility for my life. And
Right.
also in my physical being, that means I need to take responsibility for treating myself as I deserve to be treated as a son of God. So I need the right food. I need to be healthy in my exercise. I need to have enough sleep. I need to eat good stuff. And I probably am healthier than I've ever been. I'm as light as I was when I left school. But I'm much stronger and much healthier and much fitter than I was when I left school, and hopefully much wiser than I was when I left school as well. So in a sense, because I started eating and exercising and enjoying life, in a way that my body responded by shedding excess weight. And I wasn't even trying. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, I need to lose weight, because I didn't really think I needed to lose weight, because I felt okay as I was. But actually, I lost 2 stone without trying. And I realized that in reality, I was carrying extra weight that I didn't need. you know so that in itself, again, you come into an agreement with the body to stabilize itself at levels which are healthy. And I changed sort of somewhat my diet, but not trying to, just because I was eating more vegetables and fruit and stuff. But I still eat meat and things, but not to excess.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but felt really healthy. So I began to realize I need to value myself. If I want to be living in immortality, I can't abuse my body and then just, oh, well, I'm going to be immortal anyway, because I'm responsible for what I put in my body and how I use my body in every way. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it needs to be a real balance in it all. And that doesn't mean that I'm obsessive over not eating. So I eat everything that I like. I don't eat the things I don't like much, because I don't like them. But the things I like, I eat. So I'll eat chocolate and I'll have puddings and stuff, but I'll do it to a degree which is not controlling me,
Mm-hmm.
because I exercise and work a lot outside. Then I burn up things. But I also work with my body's basal metabolic rate to increase it, so that my basic actually, I generate a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
So at night, I don't need an electric blanket or a hot water bottle. I get into bed and I warm the bed up in minutes, just because I generate heat, because I have a high basal metabolic rate. So I can eat more and enjoy eating more without actually putting any weight on, because I have a higher metabolic rate. But I work at that. I work at having balance and harmony within my whole body, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just as a state of being. It's not something that I have to try hard to do. It's like being in harmony and living in that state of rest, in which the whole body, spirit and soul, is just together in harmonious agreement. But we have to see each part as being valuable. None more valuable than another, because God made us this way. And sometimes I think sort of the sort of religious thing puts a higher value on the spiritual stuff than it does on the physical stuff. Well, it isn't any good sort of just being in heaven all the time and seeing no benefit on earth. There's got to be heaven and earth coming into agreement and alignment.
I totally agree.
So it's got to be practical as well. And
Mm-hmm.
some people can be so spiritually minded, and if everything's in the spirit, and I'm doing all these things, and it's just okay, well, where's the evidence in your life?
Mm-hmm.
How are you seeing that outworked in your life? And I think we need to see the practical of heaven manifesting on earth through us, because we are in agreement with heaven and earth, and we are, the point where heaven manifests on earth through us. But I think there's a need to be balanced in it all, and our thinking is really important. How we think, and then what we say from what we think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are lots of people out there who are discovering this stuff. I mean, there's people in terms of healing. One I think is it Joe Dispenza, who I think has a scientific background, but really focuses on the mind and the thoughts and the intentions and intentionality in choosing life and choosing health and drawing health out of the quantum realm, and seeing that within the realm that we live in, there is an energizing realm that we're supposed to be energized from.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens quantum physically in that some of our particles are always in that realm and are being re-energized and coming back into this realm all the time. That's happening at Planck's constant, which is sort of 1/20,000th of a billionth of a second or something, a very small amount of time. So you won't notice that some of your particles are somewhere else, non-local to you, because it's pretty much instantaneous. But there is a gap, and we pick up energy and we come back. But we can choose to engage that realm and draw the energy from that realm. And I think we'll learn to do that by producing actual non-grid energy, free energy for people to live and run their things on, because I think that's coming. But also we need to see our whole being needs to be energized from a realm which is designed to keep us healthy and is designed to re-energize and renew and revitalize our whole being. So we need to be able to engage that realm. And people like Joe Dispenza, they are teaching people how to do it. And they're seeing remarkable results in people's lives of miracles. What they would see, what we would term a miracle, but in reality, it's just how we were designed to live. It's like we're designed to live in an energy field that keeps us healthy and whole and renews and revitalizes our whole being. That's how God created everything, to be working together in harmony. So we need to be able to tune into that and engage it. And a lot of that is our intentional thoughts and how we focus our intentional thoughts on health and wholeness.
Now you got my head just thinking and spinning there. Which is good. Which is good. So with our thoughts, that's the purpose part of us joining in our co-inclusion with him in the awakening. Yeah. That's our part. Yeah. That's our doing. Would you?
Well, rather than doing, it's more of coming into an agreement with.
An agreement.
Accepting what is already true.
Right.
I think doing implies that we have to do something to make something happen, whereas it's already happening. We need to participate in it.
Participate in it.
Yeah, the participation in what's already happening. So creation and everything has been designed so we can live healthy and whole.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But we've been out of sync with that. So we need to get back into sync with what is already true. And so our agreement with it is our thinking has been focused here, but now it needs to focus here. But it's not per se that we do something to make something happen. We enter into what was already there. So we come to a point of realization and acceptance of what is true. And therefore we participate in it rather than strive for it. And I think part of the problem is a lot of Christians have been used to being taught to press in and strive for and go for it and pursue it, and that's not restful. We need to be at rest when we engage, and that's not very restful. So I think we need to realize it's not about us doing something to make something happen. It's about us engaging with what's already happened. And that can be by just intentionally focusing our thoughts on what is already true and engaging with it, and entering into the reality of what is already true. Now, obviously, if you don't believe that's already true, then there's some change of thinking needed to agree with God, which is what, the word actual metanoia in Greek, which is wrongly translated repentance, actually means agreeing with God's mind.
Yes.
So are there anything where my mind is not in agreement with God's mind? Well, therefore, who's going to change? Me.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with him. Now, it's much easier to agree with him when he gives you the revelation of the things that he thinks about and the way he operates. So, Psalm 139 talks about being fearfully and wonderfully made, and then goes on to talk about the vast sum of his thoughts about us. Well, we need to engage with those thoughts, and those thoughts can align our thoughts with those thoughts, and then we're in agreement. And the power of agreement brings about everything, because that's what union does. It brings us into what is already true in the truth. So Jesus being the truth, when I come into alignment with the truth resonates. I resonate with that truth and it changes me. It's called entrainment. Entrainment is where something is vibrating at a particular frequency. You bring something else which is static next to that vibrational frequency, and it will start to vibrate at the same frequency. And you can test that out with musical instruments. You can pluck a string of a guitar and you can put another guitar next to it, and that string will begin to vibrate at the same note as the one that you plucked. That's what entrainment is. And we need to entrain with the mind of God and entrain with God's intentions. And therefore, when we then resonate with them, we vibrate at the same frequency, and that energy produces life in us, or change in us, or transformation in us.
You got me thinking.
Yeah.
You got me. Yeah. So I use the word do, and I need to change that into participate, because I'm a doing type of person. So I'm also a participating type of person and choose to participate. So I like that word change to participate, because I'm very intent in I try to be very intent with my actions.
Well, I think it's just being intentional.
Yeah.
And that means focused. So my intentional focus is to come close to the thoughts of God, so the thoughts of God can align my thoughts with him. I don't have to do anything. I just have to come close enough.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a choice. I can choose to prioritize coming close enough to God for him to cause me to resonate into agreement with him. But I don't have to try and agree with him. I just have to get close enough to him without sort of the agenda which is driving it, and allow his thoughts to become my thoughts and me to come into agreement and alignment. And everything then begins to outwork from that point, because I'm agreeing with him. And he says, you live in health and, in immortality. Therefore, I agree with him. I don't have to make it so. It is so, but I agree with him. And that changes the reality of my life when I agree with the truth, because the truth will change facts. Because those facts may be things which we believe are true, but actually they're just temporary until the truth changes them and I am changed or transformed into the reality of the truth. But I just need to get close enough to the truth for it to entrain me into agreement.
Ooh, would you say that again? I need to get close enough to the truth
for it to entrain me into agreement. Yeah, and I therefore resonate with that
Right,
truth, and I'm vibrating at the same frequency. Therefore, I have the same thoughts.
right.
I think like God thinks when I get close enough to his thoughts.
Uh-huh.
And I do that not to try and get close to his thoughts, just to be close to him. I just want to be heart
Exactly.
to heart with him. So
Agreed.
he reveals himself and reveals what is true in that relational intimacy of heart to heart infusion of knowledge rather than me trying to get intellectual knowledge. It's not about how much I know intellectually, but how much I actually have in my heart and the agreement I have with that truth. Because I know 101 things are true, but that doesn't make them effective in my life just because I know intellectually they're true. I have to have that intentional coming to that truth that actually that is the foundation of my life.
The
I know that I know
experiential.
that I know. Yeah, it's experiential. So I know by experience rather than I know by intellect. And
Yeah,
the only way you can know by experience is to get close enough to it that it actually begins to change you.
absolutely. Yeah, so last week's episode I was talking to Holy Spirit and I I need to experientially experience what you want to talk about. And it was grace. And so 3 times I had a vision, but I get so excited about having a vision that I forget what the principle of the vision is. And so graciously, Holy Spirit repeated, but the vision changed each time. It was repeated till I got a hold of the principle of grace. But it was so much fun that it was like a conversation, the vision. And so it was very exciting. And I hear you and I go, oh, hear what you say, and it just reiterates the vibrating of how God constantly helps us to hear his thoughts.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, because he's continually speaking and communicating. We just have to be quiet enough to tune in.
Exactly.
There's a lot of noise around us in life.
There
And
is
that
a lot of
noise
noise.
needs to be filtered so that we can tune into what God is communicating all the time. And sometimes that means shutting that noise out or quieting that noise or learning how to live in the midst of the noise but still be in the eye of peace, within the midst of all the noise that's around. And I think that's the key. You can't stop the noise because the noise is to do with other people and things in life and things that are going on. And there's a lot of noise competing for our attention. I just need to learn to focus my attention on the right thing. And then the noise just recedes into the background because I've learned to then focus my thinking and the noise doesn't affect it anymore. Some people try and get rid of the noise. And that can work for a while, but you can't get rid of noise forever. You live in a world full of noise. There's all sorts of stuff going on all the time, which competes for our attention. I just want to make sure that God has my full attention, that then puts all the noise in perspective, and that noise then just comes into the correct way of seeing it in regard to, well, I have everything I need in my life. I have all the time I need. I have everything. I have all the energy I need. I then form my life around what I know is the truth. And then everything else fits into that. Some people really try and shut the noise out and they focus more on the noise than on God. They're trying to stop the noise. Well, yeah, you could fast or you could do lots of things to give yourself focused time, but you can only do it for a limited time, because there's all sorts of things in life that we do need to be involved with, family and friends and all sorts of different things that we're involved in, and those things are not bad things. But there is also a lot of competing noise in the media and the airwaves and fear and all sorts of stuff, which we need to learn to put into its right thing. Perfect love casts out fear. So if I hear something which is like fear, then I just apply love to it. It's like, well, that's not God's desire, because perfect love doesn't produce fear. So that's not coming from God. So I can dismiss that, because that's not God's heart or intention. But it does take some focus, and it is helpful to know how to become mindful, to live in the moment, and to, in that moment, have no distractions, because you're learning to just focus on his thoughts. Maybe just one thought, just one communication, but he is continually communicating. It's for us to actually look and see or hear or engage.
I agree. Okay. Well, I think my brain is going, but I think that this is a good place for us to rest our thoughts. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, we can rest our thoughts there, no problem.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Okay. Hey, I call that a replay episode. Amen. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Mike, for continuing to help us engage truth to change those facts that just don't align with our sonship. And hey, dear family, I've left you those links below in the description. Make sure you check out Mike's newest book release, The Eschatology of the Restoration of All Things. I know you will be blessed. But before I let you go, get ready. Next week, we are putting truth into action, and I will be sharing the coolest activation. You don't want to miss it. Well, listener, it's hard to believe that our weekly time has already zoomed on by, and this has been so much fun. I'm honored to be welcome in your home wherever you listen. I love you lots. I will see you next week. Bye now.